I think the momentous, most memorable
descending from lunar orbit down to the surface that had not been demonstrated yet by testing. It's a risk-reward equation, and you're able to accept a level of risk so long as it's commensurate with the reward that you will get by achieving the goal that you're after.
T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds on the Apollo mission, the flight to land of the first men on the moon. All indications coming in to the control center at this time indicate we are go. 1 minute, 25 seconds and counting. Our status board indicates the third stage completely pressurized. 80-second mark has now been passed. We'll go on full internal power at the 50-second mark in the countdown. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. We're approaching the 60-second mark on the Apollo 11 mission. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer.
I think certainly to go as far away as the moon and look back on the Earth certainly does affect your perspective. And then when you see it, tiny as your thumbnail held out in front of you at arm's length, that sort of gets your attention. A beautiful sight, tiny, pristine, blue and white, very fragile-looking object, shining like a beautiful little headlight out there in the black velvet of space.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Slightly less than 1 minute to ignition, and everything is go.
Roger, Apollo 11's go.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Around 3.5 minutes. You're still looking good. Your predicted cutoff is right on the nominal.
Roger, Apollo 11's go.
We're showing velocity 35,570 feet per second. Altitude 177 nautical miles.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. You are go at 5 minutes.
Roger, Apollo 11's go.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Your go for separation. Our system's recommendation is arm both spiral buses, over.
Okay, spiral B coming armed. My intent is to use bottle primary one as per the checklist, therefore I just turned day on.
Roger, we concur with the logic.
Okay, we got the Eagle in view. Moving forward. $10 meters. 8 meters. 6. 5 meters. 3. 2 meters. 1 meter.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Radio check, over.
Roger, we've got the high gain locked on now, I believe, auto track and narrow.
Okay, you're coming in loud and clear, but Mike is just barely readable.
How is Neil? How are you reading, Mike?
Loud and clear now, Mike, and we understand that you are docked.
That's fine. Houston, we're ready for LAM ejection.
Roger, go for LAM ejection.
Thank you.
Apollo 11, this is Houston, over.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11, go ahead.
Roger, could you give us some comments on how the transposition and docking went, over?
Yeah, I thought it went pretty well, Houston, although I expect I used more gas than I've been using in the simulator. Except for using a little more gas, and I'd be interested in your numbers on that. Everything went nominally.
This is Houston. Roger, we copy. Eagle, Houston, we see you on the terrible, over.
I do believe you got thrusters on board that vehicle.
All flight controllers, I'm going around the horn. Make your go-no-goes based on the data you had for at LOS. See, we got it back. Give me another few seconds. We're going. Fine. Okay, retro, go. Vital, go. Guide, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. GNC, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom, we're go to continue TDI.
Altitude 5,200 feet. Altitude 4,200.
Houston, you're go for landing, over.
Roger, interfering, go for landing, 3,000 feet. Stop alarm. 1201. 1201.
Roger, 1201 alarm.
2,000 feet. 2,000 feet. Into the ag, 47 degrees.
Roger.
Altitude 47 degrees. 1,400 feet, still looking very good.
Roger, 1202, we copy you.
700 feet, 21 down. 3,540 feet down. 400 feet down. 9 down to 3.5. Up forward, 700 feet, 7.5 down. I'll leave it flew. Relay to us. See if they got me now. I got good signal strength and flew.
Okay, you should have him now, Houston.
Eagle, we got you now. It's looking good, over. Eagle, Houston, after yaw around, angled S-band pitch, -9er, yaw, +18.
Altitude 5,200 feet. Manual out of deep control is good.
Roger, copy.
Altitude 4,200.
Houston, you're go for landing, over.
Roger, interfering, go for landing, 3,000 feet. Stop alarm. 1201.
1201. Roger, 1201 alarm. Where go, same type, where go.
2,000 feet, 2,000 feet. Into the ag, 47 degrees.
Roger.
47 degrees.
Eagle looking great, your go.
Altitude 1,600. 1,400 feet, still looking very good.
Roger, 1202, we copy it.
35 degrees. 35 degrees. 750, coming down to 23. 700 feet, 21 down. 33 degrees. 100 feet, down to 19. 540 feet, down to 30, down to 15. There's 400 feet down at 9. Gate forward. 10 and 50 feet down at 4. 30, 6.5 down. They're pegged on horizontal velocity. 300 feet down, 3.5. 47 forward. On 1.5 down. 70. Got the shadow out there. 50 down at 2.5. 19 forward. Altitude, velocity, light. 8.5 down. 220 feet. 13 forward. 11 forward, coming down nicely. 200 feet. 4.5 down. 5.5 down. Within 60 feet, 6.5 down. 5.5 down. 9 forward. And 20 feet. 100 feet, 3.5 down. 9 forward. 5%. 185. Stay 75 feet. Car's looking good. Down a half. 6 forward. 60 seconds. Lights on. Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. 40 feet, down 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. Down a half. 30 seconds. Forward drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. ATA at a descent. Mode control both auto, descent engine command override off. Engine arm off. 413 is in. We copy you down, Eagle. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The 11-foot beds are only very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the lamb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. As the surface is fine and powdery, I can pick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like powdered charcoal, to the sole and sides of my boot. I only go in a small fraction of an inch, maybe an eighth of an inch, but I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads and the fine sandy particles. Yeah, this is Houston. We're copying. There seems to be no difficulty in moving around as we suspected. It's even perhaps easier than the simulations of 16G that we performed in various simulations on the ground. Absolutely no trouble to walk around. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation. I believe I'm out of your field of view. Is that right now, Houston? That's affirmative, Buzz. Something interesting in the bottom of this little crater here. I want to back up and partially close the hatch.
The passive seismic experiment detected lunar moonquakes and provided information about the internal structure of the moon. This experiment studied the propagation of seismic waves through the moon and provided our most detailed look at the moon's internal structure. The Apollo 11 seismometer returned data for just 3 weeks but provided a very useful look at lunar seismology. More advanced seismometers were deployed at the Apollo 12, 14, 15 and 16 landing sites and transmitted data to Earth until September 1977. Each of these seismometers measured all 3 components of ground displacement: up-down, north-south and east-west. If a seismic event is observed by 3 or more seismometers, the time and location of the event can be determined. Because seismic waves from distant events travel deeper into the moon than waves from nearby events, by measuring events at various distances from the seismometer, one can determine how seismic velocities vary with depth in the moon. In turn, this information can be used to study the moon's internal structure. Most of the events observed by the seismometers were due either to moonquakes or to meteorite impacts. However, the third stages of several Saturn V rockets and the ascent stages of several lunar modules were deliberately crashed into the moon after these spacecraft were no longer needed. These man-made crashes produced seismic events of known times and locations and helped to calibrate the network of seismometers.
I'd like to evaluate the various paces that a person can traveling on the surface. Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. Neil, this is Houston. We're getting a picture. You're not in at the present time. We can see the bag on the LEC being moved by Buzz, though. Here you come into our field of view. Oh, that looks beautiful from here, Neil. It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here. Be advised that a lot of the rock samples out here, the hard rock samples, have what appear to be vesicles in the surface. Houston, roger out. Man, didn't know you could throw so far. You can really throw things a long way up here.
This is the solar wind composition experiment. The Sun continually emits a flux of electrically charged particles into space. This is termed the solar wind. The Earth's magnetic field prevents these charged particles from reaching the Earth's surface, although in the Earth's polar regions, these particles can reach the upper part of the atmosphere, causing auroras. The Moon is outside the Earth's magnetic field for most of each month and has a negligible atmosphere, allowing solar wind particles to reach the Moon's surface. The solar wind composition experiment was performed on Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15 and 16. It consisted of an aluminium foil sheet 1.4 metres by 0.3 metres that was deployed on a pole facing the Sun. This foil was exposed to the Sun for periods ranging from 77 minutes on Apollo 11 to 45 hours on Apollo 16, allowing solar wind particles to embed themselves into the foil. The foil was then returned to Earth for laboratory analysis. This allowed the chemical composition of the embedded solar wind to be determined more accurately than would be possible if the measurement were made using remotely controlled instruments on the moon, but limited the periods at which observations could be made.
Okay, Buzz, we ready to bring down the camera?
I'm all ready. I think it's all squared away in good shape.
Okay. I'll step out and take some of my first pictures here.
Roger, Neil. We're reading you loud and clear. Let's see, getting some pictures and the contingency sample. Neil, this is Houston. Did you copy about the contingency sample? Over.
All right, you're going to get to that just as soon as I finish these picture series.
Start to lose my balance in one direction, and recovery is quite natural and very easy. And moving arms around, Jack doesn't go off the surface. Not quite that light-footed. You have to be careful that you're leaning in the direction you want to go, otherwise you slightly inebriate. In other words, you have to cross your foot over to stay underneath where your center of mass is. All right, you do have to be rather careful to keep track of where your center of mass is. Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you. And about 2 or 3 or maybe 4 easy paces can bring you to a fairly smooth stop. So-called kangaroo hop does work, but it seems though your forward stability is not quite as good as it is in the conventional, more conventional one foot after another. The surface material powdery. I don't know how good your lens is, but if you can smudges above. And incidentally, these rocks, very powdery surface, have
Neil, this is Houston. Radio check, over.
All right, you're Houston, loud and clear.
Roger out.
loud and clear, Houston.
Roger, Buzz.
I've noticed several times in going from the sunlight into shadow that just as I go in, I catch an additional reflection off the lens. That, along with the reflection off my face onto the visor, makes visibility very poor, just at the transition sunlight into the shadow. I essentially have so much glare coming onto my visor. I'm under shadow until helmet actually gets shadow, and then it takes a short while for my eyes to adapt to lighting conditions. Inside the shadow area.
Tranquility Base, this is Houston. Can we get both of you on the camera for a minute, please?
Okay, it's quite dark here in the shadow and a little hard for me to see that I have good footing. I'll work my way over into the sunlight here without looking directly into the sun.
It's a little difficult to dig through the
It's very interesting. It's a very soft surface, but here and there where I plug with the contingency sample collector, I run into very hard surface, but it appears to be very cohesive material of the same sort. My pocket open, Buzz?
Yes, it is. It's not up against your suit, though. Hit it back once more. More toward the inside. Okay, that's good.
Neil, this is Houston. Based on your camera transfer with the LEC, do you foresee any difficulties in SRC transfer over?
Difficulties in SR.
Negative. Something interesting in the bottom of this little crater here. Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston?
Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture.
This is the solar wind composition experiment. The sun continually emits a flux of electrically charged particles into space. This is termed the solar wind. The Earth's magnetic field...
Okay, Houston, I'm going to change lenses on you.
Roger, Neil.
Okay, Houston, tell me, get a new picture.
Neil, this is Houston.
The Lunar Flag Assembly, or LFA, was a kit containing a flag of the United States, designed...
Okay, it's quite dark here in the shadow and a little hard for me to see that I have good footing. I'll work my way over into the sunlight here without looking directly into the sun.
Tranquility Base, this is Houston. Can we get both of you on the camera for a minute, please? Neil, this is Houston. Based on your camera transfer with the LEC, do you foresee any difficulties in SRC transfer over?
The laser ranging retroflector experiment was deployed on Apollo 11, 14 and 15. The passive seismic experiment detected lunar moonquakes and provided information.
Thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Be advised that a lot of the rock samples out here, the hard rock samples, have what appear to be vesicles in the surface.
Report to visual with 3 full shoots.
Down and condition of crew, over. Okay, condition of crew, 3,500 feet on the way down. 11 and Hornet, copy. 11 Hornet, what's your splash down here, over? Okay, our splash down here is our warranty longitude, 1330, 16915, that's, okay, Hornet, follow in, there's not. All right, don't shoot.